I'm Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska, and the office is in India. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on August 25th, 2015. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup independent experts and strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you. It's right below the main video window down there at the coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com, and that's really the best way to get your questions into the show. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about a custom strengths coaching solution for small, medium, or large organizations, we'd love to have you contact us via email. Just send that to us, coaching@gallup.com, or there's a contact form right there on the coach's blog, right to the right. Look down. You can send that contact form in as well. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. That's just GallupStrengthsCenter.com for all your coaching resources and Strength Finder training needs. You can also catch this video in both streaming and downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows, as well as all the links to the mobile apps that we have. Everything available is available on our coach's blog. Just go to coaching.gallup.com. Pooja Luthra is our host today. She works as an advanced consultant with Gallup in Delhi. And Pooja, it's great to see you. We missed you last time. Great to have you back, and welcome to another Call to Coach.
Thanks, Jim. I missed you guys too. It's nice to be back, and I am so happy to welcome our guest for today. His name is Mr. Rajendra Dhandhukia. He's the CEO of Abbott True Care and, of course, a certified Gallup Strengths Coach. He has over 34 years of rich experience with him and has held several leadership positions in sales and marketing, strategic planning, and operations. So here is actually a great chance for all of us. We keep thinking about how do we do this thing, how do leaders view the whole strengths-based journey. So we have a great opportunity to hear from a leader himself about how he views the idea of strengths-based development for an organization. Of course, I would like to take a mention here that Mr. Dhandhukia is deeply, deeply committed to the idea of providing quality medicines across in India by way of equipping salespeople to provide scientific knowledge, etc., to primary care providers. I think that's a great thing that you're doing there. And on that thought, I'm going to turn this over to you, Mr. Dhandhukia, just to get started on this idea of strengths-based development, and we'll start with our first customary question of understanding a little bit about your top 5.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Pooja. Thank you very much for these kind words. My top 5 talent is responsible, relator, activator, developer, and a self-assurance. This is what, and I can see this coming live. It's a very deadly combination, and I say that deadly combination of self-assurance and activator, where always there is an urge of taking a very high risk and wanting to get into the action as quickly as possible. And I was introduced to the Strength Finder first time sometime in 2009, when actually I had undertaken a Strength Finder exercise, and then 2012. And actually, I started maturing on understanding of the Strength Finder in 2012. And that's when we had undertaken an entire team exercise. So since then, if I observe, I can clearly make out that when I am in an activator mode, when I am in a relator mode, when I am in a responsible mode. And it has been a great journey to really observe yourself and ensure that you start operating from your balcony rather than getting into your basement. So it was a great experience.
Great. You've mentioned this before, that it all started when you were a part of a team intervention that was done.
Correct.
What about that team intervention was life-changing for you?
So in 2012, I had gotten a completely new team and a new mandate in the organization, and my understanding about each of the individual was really, not so much high. At the same time, we did not have adequate time, so we wanted to understand each of the individual and the team dynamics as quickly as possible, and that's the time we undertook a team intervention. And it was really very fascinating to understand that in your team, who is a strategic thinker, who is a deliberator, who is an achiever, and how do you really get the team together? So if you are able to define the task well, then you can identify the right team member to sit on the task and define the solution, and then you know that who are going to execute it, so in order to ensure that you get the desirable result. So actually, I had prepared a chart which used to be always on the side of my table, and I used to really look at my 10 people, what are their strengths and what time I can leverage what in order to ensure that we complete the task in the desirable manner. So it was really very, very fascinating to see. And I know that if there is a decision to be taken, I should include one deliberator, one strategist, one intellect, and see that how the discussions have been going on. What is the other side of it? And at the same time, there is an activator who will really call shots and ensure that we need to take this decision and move on quickly. So it was really a great experience to experience this.
Actually, I mean, I'll be honest that I've done so many trainings. I do that all the time, and this is the first time I'm hearing an example of the team grid being used, on a ongoing basis, which is what we encourage people to do, because it's a very, very powerful tool, having the team grid in front of you to see, what are the different domains which the team is strong in, and all of those things. It's such a powerful tool, and it's very heartening for me to see that you've used it extensively as well. I'll go back a little, just to sort of ask you a little bit about, that when you were in the, one is of course the application of it. If you remember that in the session we talk about name it, claim it, and aim it. So from your own talent standpoint, did anything come up to you which was sort of, amongst the top 5 or the top 10 that you weren't aware of, and it has been a journey to sort of discover that for yourself? Because now I see you have a great understanding.
So in my top 5, developer was something which I was not aware. I was very genuinely interested in people and their development, but it came as a real great surprise to me that there can be a talent like developer and one can really work towards it, and how do. So that was really which was a kind of learning for me, I would put it like. The relator was also that really you draw your energy from the close relationship. It can be your earlier friendship, or it can be your known circle from where your energy comes. You always enjoy interacting with them, and you can very comfortably share everything with them. So that learning also came through when actually I started exploring the Strength Finder. The other great learning which came through was his self-assurance. So many a times I could experience that people have been saying my conviction as maybe a part of arrogance, which was not known to me earlier. That why is this happening? While it's an internal compass which says that okay, you do like this and you will go right and things will happen. So you have a certain level of conviction in doing certain things, but is it appearing to someone as being arrogant? I think that probably came through when I first did it in 2012, and then I started refining and then taking it forward. Amongst top 10, I think maximizer was one which came up very well. Then learner was one. So actually, while you experience these things, but when it is labeled and kind of as these are the cluster of talents that you have, and therefore you have a strength, and you start investing into it, you really become more comfortable with your own self.
Yeah, so I think that's why you also mentioned the balcony basement aspect of it, because a lot of times when you start to actually apply it, it's overcoming the basement aspect of it and taking the talent team to a balcony.
Absolutely.
Great. So again, I'm asking about right now and even earlier since 2012 that you've been actively on this. So the entire team sort of took the test, etc. One question that we get a lot from coaches, and since you're in an organization and you're the leader there, is there anything that you've done which ensures the visibility of the strengths-based journey through and through? Which means it's not so much as an event that you've done a session and then after that people tend to forget what their talents are are, what their strengths are. You said that you kept the team grid in front of you, so that's a great way of ensuring that the strengths is always in the forefront when you're deciding on team allocation, etc. Apart from that, is there anything that you'd like to share that was done by the organization or by you to ensure that people are constantly reminded of what they are good at?
So we had a 6 monthly session on the team work, and we kept on refining and interacting with one another, what kind of strengths that each one of has. So there was a kind of understanding with each of the team member that what is the other person also bringing on the table, and how do we really maximize the results. When you know the what are the team strengths. The other example which comes to my mind is the role change. There were in 2012 there was a role where the demands of the role were kind of more of execution, more of ensuring that how do you influence people, complete the task, etc. The same role over a period of time changed into a strategic role, more of an intellectual role, and we moved the person who was earlier doing this role into again a role which was more suitable to him, and how he became successful just because of his strength set. So a strength set helped him to become successful in 2012 and 13, and the same strength helped him to become successful subsequently when he moved into the new role. So, many a times when the demand of the organization is changing, and if you know the strength set of people, how do you correlate with the role deliverables and the individual strength in order to ensure that people really enjoy doing their job, yeah, and become successful with the organization.
Excellent, excellent. And that is what we also sort of talk about, that how can it help you sort of have role fitment a little bit better. We don't use it for selecting people or recruiting people, but definitely role fitment is a good idea.
Right.
So on that thought, Mr. Dhandhukia, one question that comes to my mind is that you have been an early adapter to the idea of strengths-based development, which means I'm guessing more than anything else that you sort of believed in the idea, and when the Strengths Finder came in, it just sort of helped put things in perspective and a structure. So and being at the top of an organization, which is where you are, do you think that there is that, especially in context of India, that we struggle sometimes to convince leaders and convince people at the top of the merits of strengths-based development? And if yes, how do people tend to overcome it? I mean, you are a definite example of that, and you've actually taken it forward. But do you think that's something that leaders grapple with?
So between 2012 and 2015, the journey that I have to express, I think it was earlier difficult, but more and more the organization are realizing now that it is important to really understand the strengths of people and actually play with the strengths of people rather than asking them to improve their weaknesses. That takes a long time. That does not give you engagement. The people get into depression. They may not be able to really live up to your expectation. The best way to cultivate, nurture people is to really give them input on their strengths, and give them tasks accordingly and how they can maximize their strengths. And that's where they're always positive. They're always looking forward to doing something which they really enjoy doing it. The results are better. So I think what I have experienced in my journey itself is between 2009 to 2012, if I have to say, I think the progress was not so very good. But between 2012 to 2015, I can clearly see that this concept is catching up very, very fast. In my organization itself, I see a learning and development vertical where most of them have passed through the Strength Finder exercise. I see I have included my training team in the accelerated coaching program in order to ensure that they get a new perspective also, and they start looking at strengths of people and how do we build really, and how do we inculcate this entire concept of Strength Finder in our training programs.
Okay. I'm just taking down notes as you speak, because what you're really telling us is that how can an organization really embed the idea of strengths-based development in the
Yeah,
existing systems, structures, and the
correct,
way it's done. So you've spoken
correct,
about L&D, you've spoken about training, you've even spoken about the role fitment decisions, etc.
correct.
Anything particular that you have added in the training and the L&D modules that you could share as tips or techniques to help people start thinking around strengths?
I will say L&D has been conducting session in our organization
Okay.
on the strength finders, and they have been motivating people to take the exercise. And there are several coaches in the organization who have been undertaking one-on-one coaching, and then there are presentations happening. So there is a follow-up plan, the action plan. How is it impacting their performance is also being undertaken. If I talk about sales and marketing vertical and the training team of sales and marketing, they've been just trained onto it. So slowly, gradually, we'll start seeing that how do we really, educate the senior managers on it, help them to really take forward this entire exercise with their teams and see that how do they maximize along with that team.
Yeah. I'll ask another question around this, because
Sure,
this is
sure,
something
sure,
that
sure.
I said that, I've been asked a lot of times before, and I
Yeah,
think you're
yeah,
just the right person. You're
yeah,
saying you're starting off on the sales and marketing, so I get that it's still going to
yeah,
happen. But
yeah,
from your
correct.
experience and from what do you think can be the possible benefits of this approach for the sales and marketing folks, especially when it comes to pharmaceuticals, because pharmaceutical companies tend to have very large sales and marketing forces as well. So, what is your thoughts? I know that nothing has happened as of now, but just
Correct,
your
correct.
thoughts around the whole thing.
So I think a senior manager who is probably at a sales manager's position or a zonal manager position, it's very important for him to understand that what kind of strengths that people have. Now,
Hmm.
when they have been meeting customers, whether it is connectedness, whether it is woo, whether it is, what are the strengths that they can really utilize? Most of the time, I can see through when I'm interacting with my sales force that achiever, activator, responsibility are very commonly, you can experience them while they are talking, that,
Right.
these are the strengths that they've been possessing probably. But
Hmm.
once you undertake the entire thing and educate him that
Hmm.
do you see yourself behaving like this, and when
Hmm.
he understands that yes, this is how I behave, then probably
Hmm.
for him also to maximize that, use that more often, use it in a way that he can get result in every sales call is far more easier compared to just hitting in the dark. So I see the great relevance of really cascading this down and educating people and taking the teams through this and helping them maximize their strength when they've been operating in their roles. So but this is the beginning. We have been trying to cascade it, and I'm sure that we will succeed. It will take its own time, but it's really a great concept to really build your sales organization on this concept.
I absolutely agree with you, and more so for
Yeah,
the sales part of it, because there is a stereotype involved. You expect the
yeah, yeah,
salespeople to be flamboyant and go out
yeah,
there, so you
yeah,
automatically think achiever, woo, and things like that. But
yeah.
what you need to realize is that people with their own sets of talents can
Correct.
do brilliantly only if they
Correct.
knew what their talents was.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't
And
agree with
and
you
the and
more. Yeah.
the other thing is you are never communicating negative. You are not telling the person that what you have not done, because
Yeah.
in these function people can very easily get into
Mm.
that what has not happened, what is your weakness. If you want to avoid that conversation, it is very important that you understand what are the strengths of people and how to
Mm.
maximize that. Yeah,
Mm.
it takes a bit time. Yeah, but then follow up, continuous interaction, showing them results is what is going to help each manager to really cascade it down and make the best of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember having this discussion with another person from pharma, and that's exactly what he was saying. He was like, the only conversations we seem to be having are around targets. There is so much of
Yeah,
pressure. There is so much of pressure to
correct,
sort of meet targets and all
correct,
of that. Where
correct,
is the time to talk about these things? But like you
correct.
said, if you can help them
Yeah,
see the benefits and the
yeah,
results and create an ecosystem around them in which they genuinely talk
absolutely.
about what is good, it'll happen. Time
It will
consuming, but
definitely.
it'll happen. Right.
Certainly.
So great thoughts, all of them, Mr. Dhandhukia. So tell me a little bit about your, I know you were very passionately telling me about that it's been more a personal revelation for you as you've, understood talents and strengths better. So
Yeah.
has that impacted the way you lead? Has that impacted the way you coach, the way you manage? Do you sense a change in those styles after having, gone through this entire self awareness sort of an exercise for yourself?
So I always believe that a leadership is more about self-control and self-awareness, and then controlling your team, or it's not actually controlling your team. You control yourself. The team automatically observes you and aligns to you. So in this, it was really a great journey where when you have responsible as one of your top five, what happens is you end up taking up more and more on your plate.
Mm.
uh, Generally, so unless you know
Yes.
that you need to really draw the line and say this is what is we can do, this is what probably is more aspirational. I think that was a great learning which happened to me, that take up what you are sure to deliver, and if it is little more, then what is the way that you can articulate and explain that how far we are building aspiration and how far we can actually in reality we can go. Now if a leader continuously takes more and more on the plate, what is going to happen is the team is going to get stressful, because finally it is going to go down from a leader to the team.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing where you really understand that how do you want to lead your team. The second is activator. Activator, you would always want to get into action as quickly as possible, right? So
Right.
how do you really take a step back, understand everything, understand all the nuances about how the process is going to determine the result, and then take your steps. This probably provides a little more comfort to the team, because with a self assurance and an activator, your vision can be more clear compared to your team, but your team is not carrying the same vision. So it's very important for you to explain every step. And maybe a leader, just because he has a self-assurance and an activator, would want to get into results very quickly without explaining every step of it to the team. But when you do that, the team also becomes clear and the team aligns very quickly with you. So I think these are very, very clear points which really help me in understanding myself, that how do you really, now how to get into a learner. When you have been operating for so many years, there are so many new things happening in the industry. You need to really, so when do you switch on your learner, and when do you just patiently listen to everything that is happening, and you really try and adopt some of the new things. I think this was a great learning, and I would say that for any leader, I think it's a kind of a Bible of operation. If you really start observing yourself and always reflect from your strength, maximize your strength, you can always remain in your control. You will get ideas that how do you manage and align your team to what are your objectives, and you can take your team along. And on top of that, if you know the team strengths, I think that's an additional advantage, which you can further then create the task team and take the entire task ahead.
I'm so happy to hear you say these things. There is a level of self-awareness which I think both Jim and I, Jim smiling there, has been smiling for the longest time, that we can sense that self-awareness, and it's so nice to know that you have clarity around what impact will it have on the people that you lead. So that's a good thing as well. I remember initially when we started talking, you mentioned about what the way you behave. So for example, self-assurance can come across as being arrogant because that's the way people sort of see it. So the balcony basement thing. So have you also sensed a change in perception about your leadership style? I know you're making these investment in it.
I think
So
clearly. Clearly. I also now have become a little more sensitive about my tonality, my body posture. So while I know that there is a level of self-assurance, but park that. Okay, when you're expressing to people, come, articulate at their level. Use the tonality which is more, they are able to really accept it. Your body language also tones down. Now, it's a journey. I wouldn't say that, but I have initiated. I have been observing myself that this starts helping you.
So the
You get a
power
little
and
more calmer.
edge,
Yeah.
the
Power
power
and the
and
edge.
edge,
Yeah.
and that's a point which is lost on a lot of people, that how can
Yeah.
a talent, which is my own talent,
Yeah.
actually cut me the wrong way? So,
Correct. Correct.
understanding that and realizing that it sure can, and
Yeah.
then being
Yeah.
sort of a little self-regulatory around it,
Yeah.
it's probably a
Yeah.
good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So very nice. Jim, any questions from the chat room?
Yeah, actually, we've had a couple. So whenever we have senior leadership on, like you are, executive leadership, and there's always the question of, as a senior leader, when you have someone either in your ranks or maybe a group below who's a naysayer, right? You're going to run up against it. Have you had those problems? Have you had disengaged other managers even on the team who've said, I don't buy this methodology, and then how do you respond to that, and how do you overcome it?
So naturally, you will always have these kind of experiences where someone is getting disengaged. But it's a when you have a relator, and you will always try different ways of relating to your direct team. And you have 10, 12 people who have been part of your main team, your staff function. Your awareness is so very high that, okay, who is disengaged? And then can you reach out to him, undertake a dialogue, show your perspective, show him the result, clarify the path, and you can rope him in very well, very easily. So probably a relator was something which always has helped, because a person who is possessing a relator will always be uncomfortable if in the inner circle somebody is disengaged. And he will reach out to him in order to understand him more, share the perspective, even if there is opinion which is there and we need to sharpen the plan. Okay, how quickly we can sharpen the plan. So I think I've seen this all happening in the course of action, and that has always set the things right. It may go wrong initially, but over a period of time it becomes right.
Yeah, so you're advocating kind of either looking at your own relationship themes and just kind of overwhelming them with that, right? And saying, and as we've also had we've had folks say the team grid. This was Ryan's question, by the way. So Ryan, thanks for writing that in. We've had also folks, and I think you were talking about the team grid. We've also had folks say they've lined that manager's team up in the team grid and then just showed it to him. And sometimes there's such overwhelming, all of a sudden maybe a manager who hasn't had the tools to really understand his people now sees them in this grid format as they lay out, 34 across the top, listed down on the left side. They see for the very first time what their team looks like, and oftentimes that can be enough to win them over and take it. Have you experienced that as you've used the team grid? Do you see a change in that manager once he gets a team grid for the first time?
So I have experienced that we had a team grid where it was kind of skewed towards thinking, strategic thinking, intellect, but the execution part was a poor part. And that's where actually then we put our blocks together in order to see that how there is a balance.
Right.
And so otherwise everyone is intellectualizing, and you see that the execution is probably not happening adequately. So how do then balance it out in a way that you take both the things parallelly and ensure that you are aligning whatever is being thought about, whatever strategy is developed is equally executed well, and you get the results. So these kind of experiences also we had.
Yeah, we find with our software developers oftentimes they lean to, they're strategic thinkers as well, right? So they lean when we line them up. And when you mash those together with the project managers and the managers who line more on executing and influencing, all of a sudden it begins to make sense, right? When you put you put that together in a big team, right? And so if you isolate on the vertical, and you probably see this, you guys alluded to this with your salespeople. If you take salespeople and isolate on the vertical, it can look very skewed, right? In that team grid. When you add the management in, right, or the rest other groups, it kind of changes, right? You see that?
It changes. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Let me ask you about ROI real quick as well. When you think about your investment with StrengthsFinder and the Strengths Movement in there, how are you guys right now planning to measure your return, your ROI on this? Is thinking, are there levers you've put in place to say what we're doing is making a difference?
In terms of the commercial function, the measurements are very, very clear. You know, that is not usually a problem in measuring the success. What is important is how are you creating a momentum, a positive momentum? How are you creating an open environment, because of which there is no fear and people are able to communicate very easily. They are able to bring upon the issues on the table so that there is, you can co-create the solution and once again go back, implement it, and get the desirable results. So I think it's a team dynamics and how the team dynamics is working, which is in terms of openness, in terms of bringing the issues to the table, and we've seen this happening, very, very easily. So otherwise, measurements are very, very clear, and you have targets, you have achievements, you have market shares, you have all the external indicators. So that helps finally.
So you're saying you're comfortable tying financials to StrengthsFinder results to financials. You're comfortable with that?
Without that, I would have been uncomfortable.
Yeah, sure. Sure. No, that makes sense. I think for executives, that's a big leap sometimes to say, to be willing to have financial results. And I think it's very appropriate to, especially.
So everything is hunky-dory. So what?
Yeah. Right.
So what? Is it delivering results or not?
No, right on. No, that's perfect. It's just good to hear that. Oftentimes, like I said, we get folks who are afraid to tie it to the financials, and I think that's a very appropriate. Sometimes it has to be measured right, but very appropriately. Yeah. So Ryan had asked one more question of you. You have self-assurance, right?
Yep.
So oftentimes that's a theme that finds StrengthsFinder difficult because they're pretty comfortable where they're at with themselves in that. And so for you coming at this, we alluded this to a little bit earlier, but Ryan is like advice for coaches who are coaching people with self-assurance, accepting those results, as true for them. Would you give any advice to coaches from someone working in that area of self-assurance with the people they're working with?
So the coach is having a self-assurance, or the coach is?
No, the coach is coaching someone with self-assurance. Yeah, and accepting the results. Because sometimes, not for everybody, self-assurance doesn't always come into self-actualization, right? It's I'm content with who I'm at, where I'm at, and what I'm doing. Obviously, for you, that's not the case, but as you have self-assurance, any advice for the coach who's coaching somebody with self-assurance?
I think the self-observation and from where your confidence is coming. If the person is able to, now that confidence cannot be very esoteric, or it has to be based on certain hypothesis, which is validated hypothesis. It has to be based on the facts and figures. It has to be based on the process. Now, if the person is able to, continue to remain confident on the basis of some validated facts and figures and the process, then that self-assurance is kind of dependable. But if that self-assurance is just coming without, so the sense of confidence is without any structure or base, I think the individual who is having self-assurance needs to again and again go back and say, okay, I'm feeling confident, but what makes me feel confident?
I think if you were to put it in the coach's terminology, I hear you say that if you're able to spend a lot of time in helping a person with self-assurance claim it, which is what you're saying, validate whatever he's feeling basis facts, figures, examples, hypothesis. You will soon start buying into it that this is what helps me, and then you go forward from there. Then your self-assurance will put you in a self-propelling mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pooja, those are all the questions we have from the chat room.
Great. That's all that I had for Mr. Dhandhukia. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? We'll be happy to have some closing thoughts from you on this idea of strengths-based development from the perspective of a leader. Like we said, we're both excited because it's not very often we get to hear from an executive leader, and hearing from you has been very, very encouraging for us.
Great experience, very, very good to interact. I would only want to, talk about a couple of my experiences with the student, and I think, that's where really Strength Finder can make a very big difference. So I came across a person who, incidentally did not do well in the 12th standard, and the family was kind of, completely disappointed that what is this guy going to do? He should leave studies, he should get into business. And when I did his Strength Finder, I could find that his top 5 was adaptability, futuristic, maximizer, ideation, and woo, which was actually fantastic. The person who is able to ideate and who has futuristic in him, who has woo and maximizer in him, can actually really put the resources together and make maximum out of it. And on top of that, adaptability. So you can go with the flow. So when I interacted with the parents and I interacted with the person, and we put him again on the education stream, and he has been doing well. So I think this is where also everyone can really look at leveraging it, and how do we really help the youth to redirect them to where their energies have been and how they can maximize from their life. I think that's a big thing that we can contribute to the society.
Of course, amongst other things, I hear you're developer there. But Jim, you were saying?
Yeah, was that pretty recent? Was that a recent relationship?
Very recent.
It's interesting. My son has some of those. My middle son has some of those same themes. Adaptability, number one. He's got the maximizer and the ideation as well. And we really struggled with him for we did not understand his adaptability. I think that is a theme that oftentimes gets looked at as a rebel or somebody who doesn't care, because they'll go with anything, right? Hey, I'm good. What do you guys want to do? Well, I don't care. I'll go with, I'll go anyway. Whatever's fine. And in a culture, in a situation where things are constantly changing, that adaptability thing can be super powerful. And especially, so that's great that you took advantage of that and saw that. So he's back in school doing well, and how does he feel about himself? I assume he wasn't feeling very good about himself before. He must be feeling good about himself now.
Fantastic, that's great.
Yeah,
I can share one more experience about my daughter herself. I mean, my daughter top 5 are harmony, positivity, adaptability, empathy, and a developer. All are in relationship domain. Now, she has mastered in psychology, and she was, so naturally, the natural thing came to me is you should get into HR. So she says, no, I don't like HR. I don't want to get into that. But I want to get into consumer research. And I could see that with positivity, adaptability, empathy, she can really understand the consumer very, very well. That what's happening, why is the person buying what he is buying. And she has just taken up her career in consumer research, and she has been also very, very happy about it. So I think, these are some of the wow moment of using Strength Finders.
Yeah. I think you make a very important point to Mr. Dhandhukia, that when it comes to making career choices, a lot of times the factors can be varied. It could be different reasons why somebody will pick a certain career or won't. The idea is to be aware of your own talents, to make the best of who you are in that career of your choice. So it's not necessarily it will help you decide whether you want to go into psychology or consumer research, but how to do that well is something where the talents play a bigger role. So that's great. Great. So that's all that we have for right now. Thank you so much for your time today.
Much. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's
been
Pooja.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Pooja, before we go, do we want to highlight any of the courses that are coming up there in India if folks were interested in taking any of our accelerated courses?
Yes, we do. We have the accelerated course coming up in Bangalore in the week of September 21st. We also actually very excited. We have the high performing manager course, which is coming up. We're starting that in India in November. So that is coming up on 23rd and 24th of November in Mumbai as well. So those are the two things that we're looking forward to right now.
Awesome. And if anybody's interested in getting the most up-to-date version of this, you might be listening to this a year or two after we've recorded it. Of course, you can go out to the Gallup Strengths Center. Just go to Strengths Center. That's the amazing thing about the internet. It's like we could be talking to somebody in 2 years from now, which is a little bit interesting when you think about it. But GallupStrengthsCenter.com. Send us your questions and comments. You can send them to an email, coaching@gallup.com. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this, and as well as past programs that we've done. We've done almost 100 of them now. Lots of great interviews just like this one tonight available for you. Head out to our coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com. If you have an idea for a blog post, we are accepting applications for those. We actually wrote a post on the coaches blog about how to write a post for the coaches blog. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, and put guest blogger in the subject line. That'll get to us, and we will get that in there and get that considered. We now have some 30 global meetups. Actually, we need a few more going on in India, Pooja. I'm not going to lie. We need to get a few meetups going.
Yes, point taken, Jim.
Okay.
Yes.
And they are global. We've got them. We now have them going on in most continents. I said the other day we needed one in Africa, and the chat room reminded me they have one in South Africa. So they are going on all over. If you want to start one, or if you got one in your city, head out to the coaches blog, again, coaching.gallup.com. Look on the meetups tab. That's really, as this movement gets bigger, we need to get smaller, and so we're starting meetups all around the world. A meetup's just really a local gathering of folks to get together, talk about StrengthsFinder, talk about their top 5, and those kinds of things as well. Don't forget, we have Android and iPhone apps available for you as well. If you're having trouble remembering what your top 5 are, the best way to do it is get that iPhone or Android app. It's available for free. Search StrengthsFinder in any one of those stores. Download it, sign in with the account that you did when you took StrengthsFinder. It'll be on your phone whenever you need it. I refer to mine all the time, and so you can get those available for free on both stores. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you enjoyed it, we do encourage you to share it and get that out there. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.